Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you what's changed in Silent Photographer Evolved, a map we released earlier this year, compared to the new SPV3 version. For this playthrough, I'm going to be using the Battle Rifle Grenade Launcher and SMG loadout. We still have the Assault Rifle Grenade Launcher loadout, as well as two other ones that don't have grenade launchers equipped, and then a rocket launcher and shotgun. The first thing you'll notice is that we've redone many of the shaders for Silent Photographer Evolved. We tried to bring out more color in it and have it pop a little bit more than the desaturated look the last release had. Also switched your allies from being ODSTs to the Marines. While there's technical reasons for this, as a player playing the mod, you'll notice better performance, and you also won't have to look at the same characters you played through the past two missions. You notice that this battle rifle has a different color configuration than previous videos. That's to help show that this has the grenade launcher attached, even though it's visible in the HUD and the first-person model. Unlike the previous release, you cannot toggle the grenade launcher on and off, but you can now find ammo pickups on the ground to refill it, so you're not just stuck using it for the beach and never again. Similar to the sniper rifle and Trip to Reconciliation, when you have a battle rifle grenade launcher or an assault rifle grenade launcher, which is one available through one of the other loadouts, you can use it the entire mission if you're careful with how you use your ammo. You'll notice that there's no weapon drop on the beach this time. This is because we wanted people to have to care about what loadout weapon they choose, and not to instantly jump on the beach, start swapping out their weapons while the fight goes around with their Marines. While you can be injured on the beach, you also have regenerating health, as that's the equipped armor ability for this mission. You can swap it out later, but for the beach encounter, once your health takes damage, after your shields have fully charged, your health will start to regenerate if you haven't taken any more damage. We also added some of the new elite ranks to the end of this encounter as well, so you have one final kind of mini-boss to defeat as you get to the last group of enemies. Well, the Marines could probably take them on. You have to be careful because these elites will throw grenades and stick your Marines, and you're going to need those Marines for the Warthog later. The Marines are plenty capable of fighting the Covenant on their own, as you see them mow down these grunts as I watch. I then always head to this little ammo drop inside the structure. Here you can find a health pack, a pistol, and more grenades for your grenade launcher. The grenade launcher, when you pick up ammo for it, will just refill it back up to its max value of 6. So you can't stockpile grenades and eventually have, say, 12, 18, 24, even 30 grenades in your inventory. You may have also noticed a sprint armor ability. We'll play with that later. The first Pelican over here will drop you down a Warthog. The second Pelican is going to bring you a Gun Goose instead, so you can now go about the level in two different ways. The Pelican that brings in the Gun Goose used to bring in you a bunch of weapons, but we wanted your loadout to have a bigger impact on the level, rather than just the first beach encounter. Now I'm going to take the Warthog because I want to point out what we're doing with the vehicle health system here. When Silent Photographer Evolved, after your shield went down, your health would start to deplete, and when your health was low, then the vehicle would start to take damage. The problem with this was that if your health was low, you could just heal yourself with the Warthog's built-in health packs. Here, once your shield takes enough damage, the Warthog's health will take damage instead. This is to encourage players to watch their shield and zip in and out of combat. If your Warthog does take too much damage, you'll be forced to abandon it or risk blowing up. One of the other things we did was we reduced the amount of time the Phantom hovers on the beach. We didn't like the idea that this enemy would be standing there shooting at you and there'd be nothing you could do about it. Sure, it adds nice atmosphere, but when your Warthog gunner starts shooting at a target that doesn't really hurt you, instead of the ones that are chasing you around, it can make your AI feel stupid and prolongs the encounter. One of the many things we've done in this level is speed up the pace of it, so it does not quite feel as sluggish as the original did. We've also tried to make the encounters have more diversity in their enemies and how you approach them. While Silent Photographer Evolved tried to de-emphasize headshot weapons, we do emphasize them, in some ways more so than the official games. However, you can still make it through any mission without using a headshot weapon. Headshot weapons require a higher amount of skill to kill your enemies and aim accurately, but they're not always the best tool for the job. As I round the corner over here, you're going to see me take on one of the Jackal snipers. Our new Jackal snipers use a sniper rifle that is needle-based, which is what everyone expected from the sniper rifle in Halo 2 for the Covenant side. Of course, when the game came out, we were given a beam rifle that was far less interesting than the rest of the Covenant tech. As you can see here, the Jackal poses a big enough threat that I have to take him out first before engaging with the elites, but he's not a big enough threat that I'm going to end up getting sent back to a checkpoint time over time until I just memorize where he is and where to take him out. You may also notice that the plasma pistol drains when it's charged. You may also notice that we have these glowing green stations on the map, and these will actually recharge your Covenant plasma weapons. Simply just walk over there with your plasma weapon, and it'll slowly start to charge. In combat situations, your best bet is still to find the new weapon. Of course, grenades are highly useful, especially the new gravity grenades, which can now be thrown at any target and they'll open up a black hole on wherever they hit. Be careful how you throw them though, or you could risk sucking in your teammates, or worse, yourself. The older EMP grenades would just strip shields. These won't strip a shield until the final explosion. Another area placed significantly different than the previous release is the path to the center of the island where you go into the Brute Canyon. In the previous release, you weren't encouraged to use headshot weapons. Many of the grunts in this canyon had helmets that required at least 2 shots to take out an enemy. And every brute had POW armor, making headshots a not very effective tactic. In SPV3, very few brutes have POW armor, and almost no grunts have helmets. For this canyon, I chose to use the human pistol and the brute plasma pistol. The human pistol is perfect for these canyons. It has a high rate of fire at the cost of accuracy to take out guys who come up in your face, and it can also land headshots if you fire it slowly. The brute plasma pistol is overcharged, can burn enemies and light the ground on fire, while its regular fire is kind of like a mini shotgun blast that's good at stripping shields and taking out smaller enemies. While you won't want to use it against the brutes, it's great against the grunts. I also like to use the brute shot in these canyons. The brute shot closely resembles the one in Halo 3, with one huge difference. It creates extra damage when a target is hit dead on by it. This is a change that carries over to all of our explosive weapons, including the rocket launcher. The splash damage hasn't been lowered at all, but it does give you a bonus that rewards extra accuracy. You can also use the brute shot rounds to stun enemies so you can go in for the melee kill. The brute shot does extra damage through the big blade on the bottom. This also is applied to the rocket launcher as it's a very heavy weapon, as well as the needler and shredder, which both have very spiky tops that you melee the enemy with. In addition to all these weapons that have been added for this canyon, you also have access to the plasma grenades, the cluster grenades, and the gravity grenades. The plasma grenades are dropped by the grunts, and the brutes will drop gravity grenades and cluster grenades. I'm going to skip over the brute pool area where the chieftain used to be, as that's now controlled by a pack of brutes with power armor. One of the weapons for this area isn't complete yet, so let's just jump ahead to the security pit. Security pit is one of my favorite places to use our new armor ability, Sprint. Sprint is great to evade all of the enemies trying to shoot you in this pit, especially since many of them have sniper weaponry. This area has changed pretty considerably since the last release. In the old version of TSC, all the enemies had long-range usage of their weapons. That means plasma pistols, needlers, carbines, didn't matter what they were carrying, they would shoot at you from across the pit. Here, the majority of enemies are still using their old firing patterns and behaviors, but we also have enemies using carbines, focus rifles, and sniper rifles. The easiest way to take out these ranged enemies is to get in close, but you'll have to make it by the other enemies that are shooting at you guarding them. You also have to deal with the skirmishers in this area, who when they run around can be very difficult to headshot. The ability to sprint around and find new cover to cover yourself from the snipers is one of my favorite things to do here. The hope is that with all the new weaponry and abilities in this area, players will no longer just have to sit back and trade shots with the enemies until they all die. They can move around the area and engage in close quarters and long-range combat. The old AI setup, you would just get spammed with shots, and since some of the projectiles move faster than the original game, they were very hard to avoid. All of our Covenant projectiles move at speeds comparable to that of the original game. This means that plasma pistols will travel just as fast, so will the plasma rifle shots and the needler. Stuff like the shredder rounds travel as fast as the plasma rifles did, and that also applies to the brute plasma rifle. Our goal is to make the player always be having to think on their feet. Players will bounce between long-range and short-range combat and always have to be aware of what's being shot at them, who they've left alive, and what enemies could be lurking around the corner. Players shouldn't have to remember where enemies spawn and what they're going to hold in order to succeed. Just because a player is being fired at by a focus rifle or sniper doesn't mean it should guarantee their death. The server room really showcases how much our AI has improved since the last release. With the expanded enemy ranks, there is always a twist around every turn. In this room, that is literally. We have elites with plasma pistols in here, and jackals with their shields and the brute plasma pistol. So why does this matter to you? Well, they're using weaponry that they know will be hard for you to avoid. Since the brute plasma pistol is basically a tiny plasma shotgun, it can easily strip your shields in these narrow quarters. Luckily, the elites use the needlers to try to destroy your health, which gives you some time to avoid if you can jump into cover. Other elites will use plasma pistols and know how to use the overcharge functionality to keep you behind cover, and if you peek out in the wrong corridor, you have to worry about your shield being depleted instantly. The goal is to have the most intense and thoughtful fights you've ever had in a Halo game. Running up close to them and filling them full of shots isn't going to succeed here. We always want the player to be mindful of their movement and strategies they can use to take out enemies. In areas close quarters as this, the player really has no margin for error. You would think that sprint would be useful here as you could run around the room very quickly, but the truth is, with the high time it takes to get into sprinting mode and exit it, it could be too late by the time you spot an enemy. I used no less than 5 different weapons to try to complete this area. That's not including plasma grenades. This complexity of the sandbox and the II isn't just exclusive to this one map, this is for the entire campaign, and as the game goes on, it'll only get more and more interesting. This whole clip is a minute and a half long, and as you've seen, it's nothing but balls to the wall action. The area is pretty tough, but it's not because the enemies are overpowering and kill you quickly, as many later games do. Speaking of that, let's take a look at how the hunters have changed. Ever since Halo 1, the hunters have been changed to be these big boss enemies. Well, we don't like that idea. The hunters in SPV3 are more or less just heavy enemies that you fight. The hunters have heavy armor, heavy weapons, and are very dangerous. But you can still take them out fairly quickly. They won't go down with one pistol shot like the original game, but for many of the headshot capable weapons, you can take them out in about 4 to 5 shots to their orange regions. They are far more aggressive with their fuel rod cannons, and also with their melees. They also have more than one melee attack, which can be harder to predict. In addition to being vulnerable to headshot weaponry, they're also vulnerable to plasma grenades. If you stick them in the orange spot, it's an instant kill. The same goes for a super combine from any needle-based weaponry. You can also use sprint to avoid their attacks, which I use all the time in this encounter with them. Sometimes when they're bombarding you with shots, you just want to be able to run. But be careful you don't get hit, because it could knock you out of sprint. When I can focus on one hunter, I prefer to take them down with a headshot weapon and conserve my ammo for the other guns. You can also pick up the hunter weapons and turn them on their buddy. However, this hunter is guarding his friend, so I'm just defaulting to using the headshot. With a particle carbine, it takes several more shots than the other headshot weapons to take him down just due to the high fire rate. Hunter goes berserk, you can actually land a shot in his neck and kill him outright rather than trying to get the weak spot in his back. It's similar to how the Knights work in Halo 4 and 5. Going to the cartographer facility, we've already said that we've expanded the emphasis on headshot weapons compared to the original version. The Covenant, of course, have their skirmishers, which are harder to headshot, and we also have some of the ranged rifles for the Covenant as well. Here we also have the active camo power-up. This is the only time in the game you actually find the active camo power-up. It's actually an armor ability for the rest of the missions. However, due to technical limitations and how much fun this room is with active camouflage, it was worth having it in this room, even if it's not consistent with the rest of the game. As you further explore the cartographer, you'll even run into the elite honor guards later on. This concludes our mission walkthrough. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe and leave your comments below. If you want, follow us on Twitter and come join our subreddit. We do updates on both of those that you won't find on YouTube. SPV3 will be releasing in the first half of 2016. We look forward to finally getting this in your hands.